The Philadelphia Eagles are preparing for a rematch like no other this weekend when they face the Saints in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. But while much of the attention has understandably been placed on Nick Foles and the offense, not nearly enough has been said about a defense that found a way to hold Chicago to just 15 points despite having a -2 turnover differential. Jim Schwartz has had to completely rebuild his secondary, and the identity of the unit at one point seemed almost lost and buried in the sands of 2017. But here's the defense fighting stronger than ever and sending a statement to the rest of the teams in the NFL playoffs. Instead of focusing on the entire defense or the schematics, what I wanted to do was focus on two players who fell completely under the radar as unsung heroes in last week's win, because once again in this weekend's matchup, they could be an underrated key to success. So my name is Liam Jenkins and this is your second episode of Eagles Film Room this week. Before we get started though guys, if you could just take a moment to hit that subscribe button and pound that like button if you enjoy what we do, it really does mean the world to us. The support over the last few months has been absolutely overwhelming and we want to continue to build the biggest and most passionate Philadelphia sports community on YouTube, but we need your help to do that. And don't forget, you can follow mine and the work of our 20+ other writers over at phillysportsnetwork.com to get your daily fix of the news that matters most to you. We're going to kick things off with Nigel Bradham. The Eagles linebacker was an absolute menace in run defense and even more so against the pass, but his ability to stop Jordan Howard, who carries a lot of the momentum for Chicago, was absolutely integral to defensive success. So here we can see him just read which hole Howard's going to go through, extend his body fully, and is able to somehow wrap up the running back, who only was able to amass 35 yards on 10 carries. So they really did limit his production, and Bradham was a key part of that. If you want another example, just look at this play. This is a zonal read option. Trubisky fakes the handoff and look at Bradham's eyes. Fixed in the backfield, he gets around his block and is able to bring down the Bears quarterback with no questions asked. And we saw this level of production all night long. Here we're going to see what's called a wham concept by the Bears, which is where they'll pull a tight end from the outside to block the defensive tackle who would otherwise have a free Nigel lane. Bradham has obviously been studying the tape. He knows what's coming and is relaying this down to the defensive line. There's not much Cox can do other than get absolutely hammered in the side by a tight end. Bradham knows where that gap's going to be, hammers through home and is able to wrap up Jordan Howard for a run that goes absolutely nowhere. That's a high football IQ partnered with a high motor. A great play by the former Buffalo Bill. And if you want to talk about huge tackles for a loss, look at how he storms the A-gap here. So Fletcher Cox actually draws a double team to his outside that allows Bradham to get through, and the linebacker just wraps up with no problem whatsoever, bringing the running back to the ground. Another dead play for the Chicago offense. But Bradham was just so aggressive in the run that it made it so difficult to get anywhere up the middle. He's so violent on those option plays and knowing where the pitches are coming from. The Eagles were actually haunted by this in 2017. It was something the Kansas City Chiefs did quite a lot, and since then both himself and Jordan Hicks have been so much better against the run. And look at that, Bradham sniffs that one out, gets off his block, brings down the running back again. It was running against a brick wall for the Bears most of the night. In pass protection, however, the Eagles often deployed Nigel Bradham as a spy. So you can see him here trying to read the eyes of Mitchell Trubisky and making a huge pass defense on that look. Now look at him pressed up against the line of scrimmage, bounces back off the lineman, reads Trubisky's eyes and just leaps up. That is again great vision by the Eagles linebacker. We'll see another example of this here in this spy technique. Watch him follow the eyes of Mitch Trubisky and then make the big hit afterwards. He's straying outside, he's not looking at the players coming to him, he's looking at the quarterback and following accordingly. And that is what makes this so dangerous to throw against, because if you don't spot it, it can be absolutely costly, and it very almost was here. Bradham does a great job to break up this pass, but just watch number 53 one more time. Eyes fixed in the backfield and his feet are following where those eyes are going, and then he's just able to make a great play on the ball as a result of that precise positioning. But one of those areas of his game which is severely underrated is his athleticism, and Nigel Bradham is typically one of the better zone linebackers in the NFL. That's why the Eagles paid him so handsomely this past offseason. But just watch this play here. He's able to just leap inside, get off his offensive line block and make one hell of a play. But this just sums it up. This is another spy look against Trubisky. Drops back into coverage, follows the eyes, and just look at the closing speed. That forces a misfire from Trubisky. He's got to throw it away. The only error that Bradham had all game long came in this situation. He's playing a zone technique. He's looking after that area of the field highlighted really poorly in pink, and unfortunately he just gets a little bit wide and he drifts a little bit too far towards the boundary, and as a result it just enables the receiver to sneak inside completely uncovered and make a huge play. You can see it there. The minute that the receiver is cutting inwards, Bradham's phasing outwards, and Trubisky does a great job leading the linebacker out. But that was a minor mistake. But if we're brutally honest, if that is the only criticism we can take from a game this important, then that speaks volumes about the kind of game that Nigel Bradham really had. And he really did become the heartbeat of the defense that game. But we're now going to move on to our second underrated player of the afternoon, and he's become the heartbeat of the Eagles secondary in recent weeks, and that man is none other than Captain CRE'VON. Now, the first thing to understand about LeBlanc's role against the Bears is that this was his main responsibility. The majority of coverages we'd see, he'd be rolling out straight away and looking after the curl and the flat. So is there a running back coming out? No. If there isn't, drop back. If there is, then sit on it. And that was his main area of responsibility. But there were times he was lined up in man coverage, and boy did he ever come up with big plays time and time again. This was arguably the biggest play of the game until the refs messed it up. But he gets a nice hard press. Unfortunately, it's not enough. The receiver gets momentum, and just as the ball comes down, LeBlanc reaches in with that lengthy wingspan and jars it loose for a fumble, but the refs somehow messed the call up, and well, we all know the messy ending that followed. But unfortunately, that wasn't the only time that CRE'VON LeBlanc had a big hole shot through the fuel tank. On this crucial third down play, he doesn't fall victim to the pick, goes straight back outside, makes a big time tackle to draw the play dead on third down, and somehow the Michael Bennett incident rendered that one useless as well. But the one takeaway we can fully say that is a massive gain for the Eagles is that LeBlanc's coverage is so sticky, and it is the best press coverage I've seen from an Eagles cornerback in quite some time. He's not afraid to get aggressive to disrupt the timing of the route, and we saw a great example of it there. He's lining up in the nickel, but just watch how he's the first to initiate contact. We don't see many Eagles cornerbacks doing this. We haven't, even prior to the arrival of Jim Schwartz, if we're brutally honest. But LeBlanc isn't afraid to get up there, get stuck in, and really make his presence felt at the line of scrimmage. And that is such a breath of fresh air, and it's bringing this new sense of eagerness and aggression for the Eagles cornerbacks. You can see him just feeling his way through the stem of the route. The ball then, as a result, can't go in his direction. Here's another great example of what we see from CRE'VON LeBlanc when he's lined up in these press situations. Look how compact he is at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't move first. He lets the receiver run to him, then acts like a rock, and look how he's glued to him while the receiver's too busy turning for the ball. LeBlanc is edging him towards the sideline. That is fantastic coverage. And while LeBlanc's doing that and Trubisky's trying to stare it down, there's nowhere for him to go except to throw that ball away, and that there was the play we showed earlier on with Nigel Bradham being the star. So great play by both players. If that hasn't whet your appetite though, this one certainly will. This Chicago offense, like Peterson's, thrives on timing routes, and when you've got a corner that is so eager to disrupt that, get aggressive, launch a punch, or just knock a receiver off his spot, it can wreak havoc for a quarterback. But this play here blows my mind. Look at this back pedal. He does not turn and run with the receiver. Eyes forward, he's looking to his left, in the backfield, in the backfield, in the backfield. Receivers behind him, doesn't matter. Why is that so important? Why didn't he turn around in zone coverage? Well, just watch the eyes of Trubisky. He's staring down that receiver and he can't go there because LeBlanc has it completely covered with his eyes focused on what Trubisky is doing with the football. Now, what we also see here is that he's got such a low center of gravity out of his brakes that it makes it a nightmare for those curls and comebacks, which guys like Jalen Mills often struggle against. Take a look at this one. It doesn't end up being a target, but the receiver runs, and the moment he turns, he's that foot in the ground, a quick back step, and he launches forward. He's not going to be spreading those legs further than shoulder width apart. He stays so compact in his brakes and his back pedal, it just makes it so difficult. Now on there, he does actually lose a step, and that's just a result of the aggression. We see this time and time again with cornerbacks, that you are going to lose routes and get beaten. LeBlanc is no exception, but Captain CRE'VON had himself a game, and this may be my favourite play that he made all night long. Now all we're going to see here is LeBlanc in zone coverage, and Trubisky just take the check down underneath, but look how quickly LeBlanc fires home like a homing missile, wrapping up that receiver and rendering it absolutely dead. both Nigel Bradham and CRE'VON were absolutely vital to the Eagles' success on Sunday, and they will be against the Saints because once again, you've got a dual threat backfield, which means LeBlanc is going to be looking after those curl flat responsibilities, and Nigel Bradham will be focusing on trying to figure out what the Saints' offensive line is trying to do in terms of pass protection and so much more as well. But both players were absolutely outstanding. They're going to need to be on top form if the Eagles are to advance forward to the NFC Championship game. But what do you think, guys? Can the Eagles go all the way to the Super Bowl? If they can, smash that like button, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe. From myself, Liam Jenkins, you can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21, and I'll see you on Friday for another episode of the Outside Insider podcast, or next week for another episode of Eagles Film Room.